and welcome to Movie RX, where I prescribe entertainment one movie at a time. I am your host, Dr. Benjamin, a doctor in the same way as Dr. Feelgood. I help make you feel all right. How's that?
Sounds great.
That works?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I can go along with that then. As you hear today, I have my first guest on Movie RX is returning. He is the man behind the x86ed videos on YouTube and TikTok and everywhere else. Today I have Chef. Welcome, Chef.
Hey, how's it going?
Great.
Good to be back on.
I am really happy to have you back on. It feels like it's been forever. It's only been a few months, but yeah, I've been like, I have to have Chef back on. So.
Oh yeah, I'm really excited to talk about Ratatouille also.
Oh, dude.
It's gonna be great.
So honestly, I caught this movie accidentally the first time I watched it. I think it was like on in the background or something when I was at my dad's house. And the little bit I caught, I was like, okay, I have to watch this movie. Mostly because my dad called it Rat Patootie.
How long ago was this?
Oh, I don't know. It's probably been like 10 years, I would say.
Oh, man.
Maybe 12.
I just recently rewatched it. The first time I saw it, it was only a couple years old at the time. So there was a lot of stuff in there that I totally forgot about.
Right.
As it happens, when you've seen a movie and then you wait like 15 years.
Yeah, I loved it. This is around where I like to talk about kind of the technical aspects of it. And I mean, of course, it's Disney and Pixar. The animation is immaculate as they do. The way that they do their music and stuff like that is I mean, it's always just perfect. But really what drives this one, I think, is the story. And a little bit the humor. But basic movie info on this one is that it's a Disney and Pixar production, released in 2007. It was directed by Brad Bird and Jan Pinkava. I don't know how to pronounce her last name.
I don't either.
Yeah. But it stars Brad Garrett, Lou Romano, Patton Oswalt, which
I didn't know he was in that.
Yeah. He's Remy. Like, I don't know why he's the last name on the poster names. 'Cause it's like, no, this is a huge story about Remy. Now the IMDb description usually is not great. This one I don't feel like is too bad. I mean, it's a very basic description. It's not really something that grabs you too much, but a rat who can cook makes an unusual alliance with a young kitchen worker at a famous Paris restaurant.
That sounds about right.
It is just.
I feel like there's a little more to it than that, but that's a good general overview.
So tell me what it is that how did you feel about the movie the first time you watched it? Like, about the time that this came out, you would have already been into your career as a cook. And I think you probably would have been on your way to onto being a chef.
Yeah. So the first time I watched it, the movie came out in 2007. And like I said, it was a couple years after that. So I had only been cooking at the time because I started around early 2008. And then I saw the movie in 2010. I was a line cook at the time, working at a family restaurant. And, that's there's a lot of microwave stuff and it's not the most prestigious. It's like short order stuff. But watching that and seeing the way that they were able to capture kind of the bustling of the kitchen and the fact that they didn't really show a lot of the actual cooking. Like there was scenes when it was relevant, but there was no like overt like showing a rush or anything like that.
Right.
And it was more about the stories of the characters. And I thought it was a really awesome concept with the whole concept of anyone can cook, and then having a rat in there, and then some of the scenes where like Linguini wanted to say something, but he knows that it's nuts. He knows that it's crazy, that they won't accept it. And I don't know. My general impression of it was it is a really good feel good movie, and it had some elements in there that are kind of, I don't want to say dark, but really deep, really heavy, that they were willing to put in there. And that's something you don't really see in a lot of kids movies. Right.
Well, and I mean, there were some pretty heavy things in there. Like, almost like I felt like they were putting in some statements that I know that we have on our points of interest. And I'm really kind of excited to talk about those.
And I'm not going to go into detail about it, but one that's not on there that really caught me was the scene of Remy's dad showing him the rats in the window. And, you know, I saw that, and when I watched that, and, you know, and he was making a statement to his kid, but that was pretty, like, if you think about it, pretty graphic, considering the main character is like, you know, a rat that you're supposed to develop these like emotional feelings for, and then seeing that. Yeah.
Let's just go ahead and expand on that. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So it's really interesting because the reason why, like, his dad is actually coming from a good place. You know, he was raised a certain way and learned things a certain way. And it's kind of almost a statement on the status quo. Like, this is why we don't trust humans. That was essentially the message in seeing that, and all the rat poison and all of that kind of stuff. And he was very, he was looking out for his kid. He didn't want his kid to end up in that window. So even though it seems, you know, you want to root for Remy, there's also like, it kind of explores this risk that he's taking.
Right.
Where if he does this just because he likes to cook, he's literally risking his life. And I don't know, I just found that kind of deep.
Right. It's almost like he's giving up a part of who he is, you know, because I mean, a normal part of a rat is self-preservation, safety, secrecy, you know, that kind of stuff, staying where you're at the least risk. But he has this dream. It's almost like it's a testament to him wanting to move outside of himself in pursuit of a dream that he doesn't even know what that dream is. You know, like he knows there's something that he wants to do that's more. He just doesn't know what that more is. And so he pursues that feeling, not even knowing what it's supposed to be. And I don't know. I think that that's pretty powerful. Despite where he comes from, you know, and he's risking a lot, not just safety wise, but also his family, his friends, their judgment says a lot about, you know, I mean, every time he comes across them, they're like, you know, come on, man, like we're rats.
Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. But he risks those relationships to pursue something that he loves, even though he doesn't know what it is. So, and that can be pretty powerful too. Also shows a little bit about how sometimes we can be held back by those that are around us, that we keep around us. So
good intentions are not
always positive. Now I have a whole list of characters here on our prompt here. So there's a ton of characters that I had a hard time leaving any of them off.
Yeah, I mean, they're all very well developed. I really do like that.
Yeah, they put a lot of work into a lot of these characters. Gusto, Remy, Linguini, Colette, Anton, Ego, Skinner. I mean, I even had a hard time not putting the front of house guy on there, the maitre d'.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he has his own personality in there too, and it's pretty incredible. I mean, really, as far as these go, the first one we meet with any sort of gusto is Gusto.
Mm-hmm.
We learn about his philosophy, the way that he does things in the kitchen, and the way he develops his food.
There's a fan theory about Gusto as well. I don't know if you've heard that. My wife's actually the one that originally told me, and I explored it, and I was like, you know, there's one scene where it's kind of hard to see it, but his concept of saying anyone can cook, essentially.
Yeah.
It was implied that it's possible that he had a rat under his head too, is the way the fan theory goes. And so that's why Gusto developed the whole, like, anybody can be a cook, you know. I don't know how true it is, but it is really interesting that it kind of gives you another take on it, you know.
It's fun.
Like the hair that he pulled out of Gusto's hat, you know, was that Gusto's or was that
a
Gusto
hairs, rat? You know? Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. Okay. That one I can accept a lot more than I was preparing myself. Anytime there's fan theories brought up, I'm always like bracing myself for that Jar Jar Binks is a Sith Lord thing. And I'm like, screw you. Like, I'm not going to listen to that. But no, I like that one. That one's not so bad.
I will say, on another note, just talking about the Gusto character himself, like one of the things that I noticed is that he actually represents a type of, he's like almost like the archetype of having like genuine passion for what he does and a true love for it. And you could tell like the way that they show him and demo him, even though when they show him, it's a figment of Remy's imagination.
Right.
Every time they see him, he's about being a good person and making sure everything's the best quality and having like a love for the food and wanting to bring people joy and all of that. Whereas like Skinner is like the exact opposite of that.
Yes. The commercial chef, right. Kind of thing. No, I can get along with that. I always feel like that Gusto is kind of you, that there's honor given to the food, that there's respect for the craft. What you're doing in front of you. That's one of the things that I always really admired about the way that you do your work is that there's that respect there.
I think that's the difference between somebody, because I'm actually working on a video about pretentious, like cooks that are pretentious. And I'm not talking about them being pretentious people, but doing pretentious things. And there's a couple of like really good celebrity chefs who, even if I have respect for them, sometimes they get into a little bit of pretentiousness. And one of the things that I think is important with that is there's a fine line, or there is a line drawn when I think pretentiousness is kind of creating the food without that respect, but still trying to make it fluffy and frilly and, wanting to be the best food, but not really feeling that passion towards it when you do it. Like basically kind of doing it essentially doing it for the wrong reason, doing it because you want to impress somebody more so than, I just want to make something amazing.
Almost like, Goldschlager. It's an alcohol with gold flakes in it. There's no reason for gold flakes to be in it. It doesn't add anything to the flavor of the food or of the drink. It's not.
I mean, you can buy gold leaf and add it to anything.
Yeah. You're doing it simply for the prestige of saying that you did it, essentially.
Looking at you, Salt Bay.
Yeah. Like putting, what is that? Truffle oil comes in a bottle that big and it's like $15 or something like that. Putting that in everything.
And it's cut with olive oil anyway. It's not even the real thing.
Right. Yeah. That kind of thing. Yeah. See, and your respect for that food, and not just the food itself, but also the craft. And that was one of the problems that I had with one of the characters, Linguini. Remove the fact that this is a Disney movie and that we have talking animals and things like that. There's a few moments where he's not talking, where Remy's not talking, but Linguini is talking to Remy. And he's talking to an animal that doesn't talk like it's a person. And then he discovers that this animal understands him. A little bit crazy in the real world, right? Mm-hmm. And he's acknowledging that it's crazy, like he would in the real world. But yet he still opts for taking an animal and putting it on his head to puppeteer him to cook over the idea of, why don't I just learn how to cook? Learn your craft. That was another thing that had me connect you with Gusto was that you just know your craft, you know your food, you know the flavor profiles, you know how to put things together. And when you didn't know, you learned. And Linguini doesn't do that.
I actually had a weird takeaway watching the movie the second time. And the takeaway was that Linguini actually represents a type of entitlement that comes with one of the things that I had wanted to touch on, which was the entitlement of somebody that is being born into something.
Right.
Like, a famous actor having a kid and that kid just having access to those things, even if that kid can't act. Might be a great chef, but can't act, but keeps getting these roles because of his namesake and where he came from. And, there's I feel like Linguini kind of embodies a lot of that because he is Gusto's son or related to him. I'm not, was it son? I can't remember.
Oh, yeah.
I remember there being a blood relation, but, you know, and outside of that association, he's just some rando, you know, and he likes the idea of cooking, but then he kind of gets all of the trappings of being an awesome chef without actually being able to do it himself.
Right.
And you would think being puppeteered for that long a period of time, you would develop those skills by watching yourself do it.
Right.
You know, but I mean, that's neither here nor there, but it's just something I noticed.
No, it's good stuff. Now, like going more formally, I suppose, into our points of interest here. The very first one, and we've kind of talked a little bit about it, the exploring that not everyone can be great, but greatness can come from anywhere. I like how that evolved into that over time. Because in the very beginning of the movie, it's just anyone can cook. And yeah, well, that's great and wonderful and everything. I suppose, like, I think that with enough training, anybody really could cook. Now, having them to have good taste, that's the challenge. I think that's where the talent might need to be a thing. But
it actually goes into what just sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good.
Just super briefly, the version of that saying that I have is that all chefs are cooks, but not all cooks are chefs. And it's kind of that same concept. Like anybody can cook, but not everybody can be at that level.
Right.
You know, like there's a level that I will be lucky if I ever see it because of what I need to do to get to that level. I don't have the ability or resources for. Like I can't go to France and cook under the greatest chefs and learn, you know, so there's a skill set that I'm never going to have.
Right.
Or I'm not going to get as close as I would be. You know, it would take me 3-4 times as long to do it.
No, I like that. Like it is the same concept, you know. Not everyone can be great, but greatness can come from everywhere, anywhere. You know, every chef is a cook, but not every cook is a chef. I think normally something that kind of goes on in your line of creation and everything, like your videos usually tend to focus on how the difference between a chef and a cook is that leadership aspect. A lot of the time, I don't think that's something you can teach is how to be a leader. I mean, I suppose you can learn some tricks and things like that, but I think even then, leaders who aren't born to lead, I think you can really kind of tell. But yeah, no, I really like that. I like how you correlated that with something that I've heard you say numerous times before.
It almost reminds me, like what you were saying, it almost reminds me of the way that people talk about genetics and bodybuilding, where they say that, you know, anybody can look really good, but if you don't have that like top tier 1% genetics, even you could take all the roids in the world and you're still not going to look like, you know, Johnny Shreve or Ronnie Coleman, you know, because they're just that good. They're genetically gifted and they had all of these other things. So I think that you can teach leadership skills to anybody, but how much they absorb, how they execute that, their personality, and a lot of things that they naturally have may not
come as naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with that. This is one of the ones that I was really looking forward to getting into. Women's role in a kitchen. You have marked down Colette's monologue about having to fight for everything in a system designed to keep her kind of in her place, sort of thing. Right. I've actually got a sound bite for that. I'm going to go ahead and play that.
No, you listen. I just want you to know exactly who you are dealing with. How many women do you see in this kitchen?
Well, I
Only me. Why do you think that is?
Well,
Because haute cuisine is an antiquated hierarchy built upon rules written by stupid old men. Rules designed to make it impossible for women to enter this world. But still I'm here. How did this happen?
because you,
Because I am the toughest cook in this kitchen. I have worked too hard for too long to get here, and I am not going to jeopardize it for some garbage boy who got lucky. Got it?
Go home!
I love that scene.
That was really good.
Yeah, the way that I mean, she's stabbing those knives through his sleeve, his coat sleeve, and slowly pinning him to the table. And he just doesn't know what to say because he starts off that conversation trying to be like super cool and and suave. He's all like,
Right.
I just want you to know. And she's like, boom, no. Like,
This is not happening.
so first off, I kind of want to ask you, what's your opinion on Colette kind of representing women in a kitchen as a character? Because I haven't worked in a lot of kitchens, but I feel like there's a lot of Colettes in kitchens.
Yeah, I'll get more specifically into like female chefs. But Colette actually represents something. I really wish my wife was actually here for this part, like that she could weigh in, because having that perspective is really, I think, important, and it's missing in not just this industry, but overall. And the thing is that the way that my wife puts it is that the problem with females in any industry is they have to be 2 or 3 times as hard as any man that's there. And they, aren't always allowed to show emotions. They can't admit that they're overwhelmed. They can't have normal breakdowns. Like a guy can have a breakdown in the walk-in or whatever and talk about it and like brush it off and whatever. But women are really treated on this other level where if they do anything, they can be seen as emotional, or they aren't given the same opportunities, or they're given less pay. And I think that overall that is absolutely not cool. And there's a lot of times in the kitchen where front of house doesn't treat, they'll look right past the female chefs and try to find a male chef and talk to them. Even though somebody might be standing right next to me that's a woman that is completely more qualified than me to answer that question. And a lot of times when you see these successful women, you will notice that there is this obviously in Colette, it's, slightly exaggerated for what the message is, but you will notice there's a lot of women that have that kind of hardness about them because, so many industries are male dominated. Because
they have to.
Yeah.
It's, and that is very true. I mean, in a lot of industries, even it's a lot of the time it's ignored. But even in industries that are female dominated, you look at a lot of those industries, but you look at the leadership and the leadership is all men. And so you have an industry that is primarily women workers all vying for these upper positions that it's like, they're fighting so hard to get there, just to run into this block that a lot of the time men are picked for those positions. So, I mean, it happens all the way from, your saucier to your sous chef to your chef. But I mean, it happens in the whole restaurant. Like, I mean, how many,
right.
I really do like how they really punch it into your face with Colette's attitude. I love it. It is so.
Oh, absolutely. I thought that was a really great scene. And, also, I want to add something that I always say when any kinds of things like this come up is inevitably you're going to get a comment somewhere, whether it's on your channel or in your comments on podcasts. It's like, well, I'm a female chef owner or whatever. And the way that I see this is, there are literally billions of people on Earth.
Right.
Anything that we say, there's always going to be exceptions. There's always going to be female business owners or female managers, sous chefs, all of that. Who's the sous chef on Hell's Kitchen? I forgot her name. I know her name until I go to say it. It's not Courtney. What is it?
I don't remember.
Find it really quick.
Tough as nails, though. Yeah, actually, she was always one of my favorite parts of Hell's Kitchen when I'd be watching. I'd always love it when he would go get all the different orders and stuff like that, take them into the kitchen, start shouting them out and everything. And then, like, you can see her running from station to station and making sure
Christina. I knew it was a
Christina. Yeah, she's kick ass, man. Like,
yeah, and she's not just the sous chef there, but she's like in charge of his whole brand.
Right.
Like, it's pretty awesome position.
Yeah. But again, I mean, is that an exception? I mean, you definitely see successful women in, the kitchen industry. But again, it is the amount of work that is applied, I think, is a lot of the time not equal. I really liked how they muscled that in a little bit. I don't know that it was subtle at all.
Oh, definitely not.
But I do love how they put it in. If you're a kid, you just
think, oh man, she's mad,
Yeah. Again, that's another one of those things where it's like, that's content that is made for grown-ups, that is put into a kid's movie so that grown-ups can still get something out of the movie, which is why I'm not afraid to have kids' movies on my podcast, even though I'm 40. So, but yeah, I really did love that part of the movie. There was something else in here that, is this a fan theory, or is this something that is this something that there's evidence for? You had Ego's mom is the old lady from the beginning.
I think it's still a fan theory. I don't think it's like officially stated anywhere in there, but it's, to me, it's one that makes a whole ton of sense.
Yeah.
Just in the simple fact of, like, if you think about the dish that Remy made, that he made Ratatouille, and everybody was like, why are, like, it came out of nowhere. Like, why would you make that dish, that specific dish? And, all of the times that he would go in and she would be watching, Gasto's cooking shows, and he had her books and things like that. It seemed to me, it's not a far leap to see that he found that recipe in her house.
Oh, yeah.
It's not verifiable, but it's one that I think because it's really, a lot of the fan theory comes from when that picture, when he takes a bite of the ratatouille and there's that like warping and he's a kid again.
Yeah.
That a lot of the structures in the house look the same in that scene as when you're looking around the house at the opening scenes of Remy.
Okay.
Doing stuff.
Yeah. I'm, you know what I think might be what seals the deal on that.
What's that?
I'm gonna rewatch the movie now again just because of this. I'm gonna look around that old lady's house for a bike that looks like his bike, because that was the whole premise of that scene. He fell off his bike and skinned his knees.
Right. So if that bike is there,
if that bike is there, then you know that Pixar planned that. Like.
And anybody listening and watching, if you know more about this, it'd be awesome to get those in the comments as well.
Yeah, that'd be pretty badass. So we talked about the following your dreams, despite those around you not really supporting you. Now, what about the idea of using your gift to help other people? Initially, my thought on these two was, they state very plainly, I am a human that doesn't know how to cook. You're a rat that knows how to cook but doesn't know how to be human. Initially, it comes off as like the symbiotic relationship of what they do.
That was exactly right.
But after he gets schnockered with Skinner, he's passed out on the floor in the kitchen. Colette comes in, and what does Remy do? I'm sitting here going, well, you just leave him on the floor. Like, I mean, there's no reason to, have him have to get up or whatever. But he's trying to help him out. And so he gets him up, pulls up his hair and gets him so he's standing and all of that. And Colette comes in, and he's trying to play it cool while trying to help, Linguini further his relationship with Colette.
Right.
How do you view the ability to use your gifts to help others as it pertains to a kitchen?
Well, unfortunately, and it's been a lot less so nowadays, but I was for a long time really jaded in helping anybody. Right. After getting burned, you get to be almost 40 now. When you see somebody on the street, there's so many times where, you've seen people faking it. Mm-hmm. There was actually a family that got caught here where I live that were basically grifting, and then they would go out there with their kids, help me, I need money. And they had, nice cars and everything like that. And they got busted for it. Mm-hmm. And that kind of thing happens so often, on smaller scales or individual scales, that I kind of got to where, like, I'm just going to do my thing. I'm sorry you need help, but everybody needs help, and it was kind of a negative attitude that I had for a really long time. And then, I started to realize that it's less about, what it comes from being burned. And so then if there's people that genuinely need help, there's no reason why they should have to suffer because of somebody else being an asshole 5 years ago, So today I'm a lot less likely to be a jerk about it. And I think what it's really about, because one of the things that I want to do, I don't know if it's going to happen anytime in the future, is I actually wanted to use what I know between marketing, soft skills, and cooking ability to basically start a program to help felons develop a skill. Mm-hmm. And whether that counts for like, juveniles or actual felons, people that spend 15, 20 years in prison and they just need some help.
Yeah.
Especially after witnessing what happened with a close family member. They spent a year in prison, and it was only a year, and it was on an assault charge. And the way the system is set up is almost to bait you into doing something to get you back in there.
Right.
Because there's like the halfway house, and I think then there's another step down from that before you're kind of like let off. Mm-hmm. But having that felony on your record, like there's so many jobs, so many doors shut.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's really not. And I truly believe that there's a lot of people out there that had they just had that one more chance after their screw up, like there's a really close friend of ours that is now a business owner that was looking down, possible 10 years, assault a police officer and a DUI charge and all that.
Right.
And now they're a business owner. They're very successful. They're doing pretty good. Mm-hmm. And they just needed that one, just that nudge and that bump in that right direction. And I think that using your skills to help others can be not handing out, things that you have, but giving them tools to develop those skills and do things on their own. And it also will show like how badly they want it. That's pretty much where I am on that.
That's awesome. Well, and I mean, even you yourself, you've grown in your content creation and stuff like that in a way that I relish. You do a really great job. And the whole premise of what you do is utilizing your knowledge, your skills, the skills that you just had and the ones you developed, and turning around and helping those that don't have the knowledge but have the curiosity. That I think is really something that you shine at, is using your gift to help others. So good job.
I appreciate that.
I applaud you for that.
I will say that I probably had a good 50, 60 videos up that didn't have any more than 10 views,
right.
Sitting at 50 subs for a year and a half until it finally started getting traction. So
yeah, you
can
blew
get
up.
It too.
You blew. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm working at it. So, now the last point of interest here that I really wanted to talk about, this one was yours. Ego the Critic came from humble beginnings, possibly poverty, to being an authority on the best restaurants in France, misunderstood and portrayed as an antagonist. And it would also be nice to touch on the role of critics.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell me about that.
Well, I mean, the idea that he came from like lower income is the way that they have the emphasis on Ratatouille being a quote unquote peasant's dish.
Yeah.
That it was something that the poor eats. Mm-hmm. And him having that knowledge and understanding, looking back on that and seeing, him eating that, and that was something that brought him warmth and comfort. It's not a hard leap to say like, well, he didn't come from an affluent family.
Right.
Simple house, simple dishes, simple life, that kind of thing. And the part about him now being an authority, it's almost like he developed this sense of being jaded at the bastardization of food. Mm-hmm. And the pretentiousness that I touched on earlier. And his antagonism comes from him wanting to really find that joy again and find something that he could really say is the best. He wants, from what I saw, he wants to like the food. He wants to say good things. But after so many times of, crappy chefs making crappy food, you start to kind of develop this sense of like, well, this is never going to happen. I'm never going to find, that awesome gem.
Almost like he becomes hostile about it just because he knows like he's gone through it so many times that he's like, yeah, this is just another pretentious chef with a pretentious dish and trying to impress me, and it's going to be just like everything else. Like you said, he's looking for a good meal, but after doing it so many times, he just expects that everybody's going to disappoint him, and that essentially turns him into a pessimistic, nasty critic.
I don't know if you have a clip of this specifically, but one of the ones that really stood out, which got me thinking of this concept with ego, was when he ordered perspective.
Oh, dude.
I don't know if you have that or not.
I don't know.
But he's like, you provide the food and I'll provide the perspective.
I loved that little exchange there was perfect, because I love how the maitre d' was like, so what would you like to eat? Like,
I don't get it.
Yeah, that was really good. And Peter O'Toole's voice for Ego, that's intimidating, even as a cartoon. Does a really great job. The critics thing, your commentary on critics is kind of what is more aligned with my active ingredient in this. And I don't know, I guess I don't really want to mess with that too much before we get into it with yours. But what was it that you wanted to talk about as far as the role of critics?
Well, as far as the role of critics go, there's some things that are exaggerated in the movie, and it's not to knock the movie specifically, but there's a couple things, like, for instance, one bad review isn't going to take a Michelin star away. You know, he's not a Michelin inspector.
Right.
And most of the time it is a rolling out of food reviews and customer reviews and kind of a mixture of those over a long period of time that start to bring a restaurant down. Mm-hmm. You know, if everybody loves the food and a critic comes out with a bad review, it doesn't kill the restaurant at all.
Right.
People are just like, well, that guy probably just had an axe to grind or something like that. It's when it happens multiple times, mainly the impact that they have. Now, I could see well-known magazines that have like food sections making a good review. One of the restaurants I worked at actually did get a good bump in business because they ended up in one of the top restaurants in the country for like pizza and burgers and stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, granted, it was like they were like ranked like 25 out of 100 or something like that, but still, right. Just how even having their name on there was a big bump. People don't go out of their way to go to a restaurant like that, but they see that name, and it's like in marketing. Right. They see the name, it sticks in their head. Then one day they're making a trip from California to, wherever, to Iowa or wherever they're going. And they're like, hey, we're in Nebraska. There was that one place that we went to that we saw. Like, why don't we go there and check it out? And that's how you end up getting that increase through tourism. Although
I do think that I've met people that it's almost like their family vacations are destinations to go find places that are restaurants that people have been on, like TV and stuff.
Oh, Franklin's is like that in Austin.
Yeah. Like, I mean, there are people that's how they do their family vacations, is that they go to famous restaurants that are famous because of being on a show. I mean, there have been a couple of times where I've been like, God, I kind of want to make a trip just so that I can try it out, But I mean, did you even know that was a thing, that there's like a culture of people that they just do destination? I don't know what you call that, destination dining.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the people that would come in that had that attitude, there wasn't as many families, but there was definitely a lot of couples, and people that, I mean, I can kind of count anniversaries depending on how far out they're coming, but there's definitely people that they go out of their way to come and see the place. A lot of it, a good chunk of it, I'll say, comes from people that had a restaurant, say, so I live in Texas. So a restaurant that opened in Houston, and then that restaurant, those people move somewhere like New York or Arizona or something like that. Mm-hmm. There are some really diehard fans of that restaurant that will now make a trek and drive several states away, whether it's once a year or whatever, just to eat at that place again and to see everybody.
That's cool.
So I think a chunk of it comes from that. And then there is some people that they're just like, I want to visit the restaurant I saw in, diners, drive-ins, and dives.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that.
That's
like
pretty cool.
Hell's Kitchen would be another example.
Yeah.
Like,
I've actually talked about, you know, how I would drive all that way just to go to Hell's Kitchen if I felt like I could justify it. Like I want
100%.
I want to do that, but I also want to find some other thing so that I'm not telling people, yeah, I'm driving all the way to, because it's in California, isn't it?
There's one in California, and then I believe they have one in Vegas. I think the California one is the one that's actually just open all the time to the public.
Right.
The other location in LA and the one in Vegas, I think, are more like sound stages, and a lot of the people that end up there, the reason why they're celebrities is because, like, I know a guy that knows a guy, and then they kind of come in and eat for free,
right,
as part of the show. But yeah, LA has I believe has the restaurant one, that's
the
like
actual
mimicking,
restaurant.
Yeah.
See, and even that one I'd kill to go to, but I feel like I'd have to find another reason to go to LA. So I don't know, maybe one of these days I'll head out that way for like a YouTube convention or something like that. But
next time we head out to GDC, I'll give you a ring.
Oh, there you go.
We can do a whole thing.
That's awesome. This part of this little segment of the show, now that we're starting to get down towards the end of it, this is what I call the active ingredient. And it's where we talk about the overall meaning behind the movie that affected you, the individual thing that really stuck out to you, that made a difference in your life, that maybe changed your perspective a little bit, that was healing for you. Do you have an active ingredient in this movie?
Yeah, I would say that I touched on it in the beginning, but the concept of, you know, greatness can come from anywhere, and the whole concept of Remy as the rat having this skill and just needs a way to express it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a lot of relation there with like how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the drive is all about, you know, finding the mixtures, and the whole thing could be summed up with the scene of when he ate the piece of cheese, and then he ate the what I think it was like a strawberry, and then he tried them together, and like the emotions and passion that he had just for enjoying that and being in the moment and kind of like enjoying the little things is something that I think is missing from a lot of people's lives.
Yeah. And it's funny because because of that scene, I have tried doing that. I find two things that everybody says are things that go really great together. I still don't understand the nuts and cheese thing. Like, I still don't get that. But I have tried doing that with some of the things, like some cheeses and fruits and things like that. I mean, I don't get the sparklies, and I don't get the colorful wavies and stuff like that in the darkness of my eyes or whatever while I'm doing that with my eyes closed. But
I would love it if I got that.
Right? It'd make cooking a whole lot simpler, wouldn't it? But instead, what doing things like that kind of reminded me was to just take a moment to appreciate the things that you are doing. Like, you know, when you've worked a job that you only get like 10 to 15 minutes for lunch, you learn how to work food down, and there is no substance to it. You are simply filling a hole so that you can get back to work.
I know all about that.
And because of that, like, it's almost like you lose that ability to really appreciate the things that you're eating. And that can kind of be applied to everything, especially in this day and age where everything is instant. You know, everything is fast. Everything is faster. I think it's real easy to not appreciate the things that are around us in the way that they need to be appreciated. And I think that a lack of being able to stop long enough to do that has harmed the way that we are as people in general. So I completely agree that being able to take a moment just to savor, to use a food term, just to savor the things around you a little bit, I think is really important.
Hey, you know, you just touched on something I didn't think about till just now. I think that could actually be a small part of what adds to chefs and cooks being burnt out, because there are so many times where you're on the line, it's busy, you're not getting a break, so you just slap some kind of random sandwich together or go eat it over a trash can. Meanwhile, you're making all of these like gorgeous meals and stuff for people, and you start to like lose the feelings that you might get or the things that you might experience that somebody else would experience, where they got to sit down and take the time to really enjoy their meal, have good company, good conversation and stuff like that. And since we were talking about flavors, I did want this is a really good book. It's called The Flavor Bible. This has pretty much every single flavor combination, and it goes into detail about all of that kind of stuff. So if anybody is listening, you don't have to be a cook or a chef to appreciate this, because it'll definitely up your game. No, I'm not getting sponsored or paid from by them or anything. It's just a really good book that I love, and I just wanted to share that.
That's awesome. Yeah, now I'm going to have to go get a copy, because I'm still looking for those sparks and colorful waves. My active ingredient in this one actually had more to do with Anton Ego. So one of the things that listeners on my podcast will notice is that I don't ever give any sort of a rating for the movies that I do. I consider myself a movie critic, but I'm not a modern movie critic, because everything now has to be quantified, where it's, 8 out of 10 or 4 out of 5 stars or, whatever. There has to be some quantity that is put with every kind of a review or anything involving movies. And I don't think that that's a good thing. I don't like it. And I think that by doing that, because everything has to be quantified now, that is what has been so damaging to the movie industry in general. In past episodes, I've been super critical of a big critic website, Rotten Tomatoes. They literally give a percentage value to every movie. And in our very first episode about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the very first movie has so much meaning to so many people, but you ask Rotten Tomatoes and it is certified rotten. But how can that be when there's a whole generation of people whose heart ached to have that movie and remember it so fondly? And it's because everything has to have a number or a value attached to it now. Think about the old movie reviews, how it would be, this person says that it's a great movie and you should go watch it with your family. Siskel and Ebert gave it 2 thumbs up and all of that. That was the most quantity that you had, was 2 thumbs up. And some of those
movies were terrible.
Yeah, and some of them were really awful, but there wasn't really anything as far as quantity goes. No number attached, nothing like that. And I think that's been a big part of the reason why everybody is so hypercritical of movies now. There's all these plot holes. Well, there weren't plot holes to begin with.
Somebody else actually pointed out that they cannot name a single movie that is a big box office movie that wasn't a remake or a spin-off of something that already existed,
or a recreation of
and I tried, I couldn't find it. Remakes and sequels.
There's still some people out there that are making some original content, and some of those are even doing things that are based off of their own work. But no, you're right. There's so many reboots now. It's ridiculous. I think that critics need to be a little bit more careful about how they push things into other people's minds. We have a responsibility as critics to make sure that we are not giving people their opinions, that we are giving them our opinions. Keeping that free mind thing. That's what it was for me, and it was all because of Anton Ego. And actually, I have a couple of sound bites that kind of brought that up for me. I'm going to play those quick.
In many ways, the work of a critic is easy. We risk very little, yet enjoy a position over those who offer up their work and themselves to our judgment.
That's very humbling. Mm-hmm. You're put into this place where you can damage somebody or something with your words. Look at how that can affect the food industry. Have you had any struggles with, critics and how they work?
Mostly, the biggest problem I've had isn't with direct critics, but the way some of these critic the way that some of these critical apps and websites work, the problem is that so many people are so willing to give a bad review, like on Yelp,
but not as willing to give a good one.
Yeah, it's like for every 15 or 20 bad reviews, there's like one positive one.
Right.
And, you know, it's usually somebody that really took the time to make it. But mostly it's just people that they get mad because this was wrong or that took too long or whatever. And then they just blast the restaurant.
And that's the only time they want to say anything. So I'm going to end this episode a little bit different. I'm going to end this episode by saying that I am going to give every listener that is listening right now a prescription. And that prescription is to go out and find somebody that is doing a good job and make sure to tell them, hey, you do a good job. Now, this can be anybody at the gas station where you pick up your coffee on your way to work. This can be, you know, the guy that sits in the cubicle next to you. This can be wherever. Like, I don't care who it is. Somebody who you see is doing something right and doing something well, tell them, hey, you're doing a good job. Just do that. And don't tell anybody that they're doing a bad job that day.
That day.
I mean, you
can tell them tomorrow.
Maybe wait a day, but take a day just to tell people that they're doing a good job. Thank you, Jason. This was awesome. It was really good to have you back on again.
That was awesome.
Can't tell you enough.
Enjoyed it.
Now, I do need you to plug your stuff because I don't even know how to start. Go ahead.
Well, you can find me everywhere, lowercase x86ed, and not as active as I'd like to be on X. I'm trying to fix that. There's actually some things I'm planning on with that, but mostly it's YouTube, just at lowercase 86ed, and you can find all my content on there for YouTube.
That's awesome. Now, if you've got a movie that's been medicine for you and you'd like to be on the show, you can email me at contact@movie-rx.com, or you can leave a voicemail or text me at 402-519-5790. If anxiety has been keeping you from wanting to get on, you can always write me a couple of paragraphs and about a movie that's really moved you, and I can read it on air. Remember, this movie is not intended to treat, cure, or prevent any disease, and we'll see you at the next appointment.